So here we are, finally. It's been a couple weeks since the release of this movie. And, it's time. It's time to talk about Sinners. Let's unpack it. I honestly don't have anything new to say that you probably haven't already heard. You just know, the movie's good, and I am just one extra voice in that conversation to tell you, yes, the movie's fantastic, and yes, you should see it. Should you see it in IMAX? You absolutely should see it in IMAX, but the movie's just as good if you don't see it in IMAX. And I know this because I've seen it in IMAX, and I've seen it in standard showings. I've also seen it in what they call the X screen version, and there's another version somewhere. I can't remember the format, but and it's good in all those formats. So if you're wondering, I can tell you definitively, the movie is good, period. But if you want that extra spice, IMAX, hands down, is probably the best way to go. I want to begin digging into one of the things I think that touched me deeply about the movie, aside from the obvious, the certain cultural aspects that I recognize, that I found within my own family and my own family lineage. It is highly resonant. Aside from that, I had an experience in Nashville, Tennessee. It was at a work event, and I had a minute to break away from the activities, and I made it a point to visit the National Museum of African American Music. This was such a experience. I feel like it's an important museum, and I really think every major city should have something like that, because it tells the story of music in this country and the way it has evolved and shifted into what it is now, but also where that came from, how it started in West Africa and obviously migrated to what would become the United States and shifted from more tribal African music, became slave hymns, became the blues, became all these other genres. It's an amazing museum, and if you walk through it, just the first area, there's this massive interactive, table, and it's like this map that shows you the different types of music as it evolved, and you can hit a button and it'll tell you like the time frame from 1639 to this time. This is what this music was, and this is how it became this, and from 1735 to 68, it breaks down all these. It's amazing, and that's just the front area. Anyway, the point of mentioning this museum is that it chronicles. You can tell a lot of research, a lot of time and care went into the building out this rich tapestry, and how it also is this narrative. And in a lot of ways, well, actually majorly in that way, that's what Sinners is to me. I found Sinners to be this rich tapestry that blends together multiple genres. People are talking about it as a horror movie, and I think really it's kind of disservice. It's a disservice to the movie to label it that. This movie has horror pieces in it, but it's also a character drama. It's an action movie a little bit. It has elements of horror. It's and it's a musical. It's got a lot of different things going on. So to outright, and yes, it was marketed as a horror a little bit, but still, I think that's a mistake a little bit. On the one hand, if you've seen the early marketing for this movie, but maybe 6 months ago, 8 months ago, you didn't really know that much about it, except it was a movie that was starring Michael B. Jordan and that Ryan Coogler was directing, and that it looked like there was going to be some force that was going to have to be overcome. That was it. That's certainly all I knew, and that was enough for me to go, all right, I'm in. I didn't know anything about what the threat was. I knew it felt like it was going to be a thriller, and that was enough for me. The only thing I assumed was like, they're gonna be fighting zombies. It's gonna be serious. What is this movie? Out in the country somewhere. What is this? That was enough. Having seen the movie, it's so much more than that, and so much more than the label of, oh, this is a horror movie. I don't know that you could really call it that, honestly, and sleep at night. So many good things about this movie that resonated with me, just as a film head, and then just culturally, but also just from a spiritual perspective, just being taken over by the experience of this film. And I think if I were to sum up the experience in one word, I would say that the movie was transcendent. Really, it's really, and that comes down to one sequence. That which is, I think, is the heart of the movie. That's what the movie is about. In a nutshell, like it's about a lot of things, but the movie as a whole has one primary anchor point that I think everything else stems from, which is what I think is the centerpiece sequence. You've likely heard a lot of talk about this at this stage. And it's a sequence in the middle of the movie during a performance that one of our main characters is giving. And the music is so rich within the narrative of the story, of the movie, that it has the ability to hold you. You feel cradled. And it also is powerful enough to pierce the veil between life and death, as the movie explains in the opening title sequence. And what follows is the most transformative sequence I've seen in a movie in probably ever. I can't think of another sequence that is even close to that. A lot of that has to do with my experience in Nashville at that museum, because that was what that sequence brought up for me. You have the main character singing, and near him you have futuristic musicians appearing in the sequence, and you have ancestral members who are performing and dancing, and then you have this whole wide just experience of like this smorgasbord, really, of like color and culture and music, and it just feels like this. And the way it's shot is fantastic, and the way the camera moves. There's been a lot of conversation about the technical aspects of this movie, and that sequence is one of the good examples of how they really got in there and used the heck out of those IMAX cameras. The camera is moving through the spaces and all the rooms, and you're seeing all these people. I'm not doing it justice explaining it. It's a beautiful sequence, and I think that if that sequence doesn't work, the movie doesn't work. To me, that's what everybody is after in the movie. There is a theme in the film about community and fellowship, and the juke joint that is established is an example of that. There's community and fellowship all up in there. Everybody's having a good time. They're enjoying themselves, and it's just a peaceful, beautiful situation. And so you can imagine if you're a fly on the wall watching that, it's just everybody's just vibing and just enjoying the atmosphere, enjoying the music. It's the one space where you can imagine, given everyone in that juke joint, most of everyone in there is black. This is set during a time during Jim Crow in 1932 in Mississippi, so highly racist. It's a dangerous situation to be black in that time period, in that area, if you're not in your lane, as it were. So this is an example of everyone being sort of in their lane, and it's safe. It's a moment of safety and comfort and just community, and just it's just great. That's what everyone is after. That's what the villains are after, or the main villain, I should say. Ultimately, he's after community. And again, if that doesn't work, if that sequence is not together, then the other pieces of the movie start to fall apart. And I think, never mind that the movie itself is already great before that, because it takes its time in developing the characters, establishing the setting, and not showing us where in time we are, but also giving us the feel of the time period. The production design has a lot to do with that. It's fantastic. I understand they probably shot the movie in Louisiana, and they found places, the filmmakers found places that resembled parts of the area of Mississippi that they were going for. You have vast cotton fields and roads that are endless, and it does a lot to give a sense of the authenticity of the setting. And we're not even talking about costumes, and like some of the strips of sections that had like storefronts, and just some of the town areas where the churches, what the churches looked like, and the cars looked like. It was just like it's immaculate production design. So all this you see before the midway point of the movie. So there's a lot done to really root us in the time period and the way of life, and it's expertly done. You forget, in fact, that other sort of horror stuff is about to jump off until it jumps off, because it's such a well done period piece. At that point, you might as well be watching a movie about it, and it's just as intriguing and engaging, just because the characters are so immediately interesting. From people like, obviously, off the top, Michael B. Jordan, who's playing dual roles in this movie, immediately charismatic, and immediately you want to know what's going on with this guy. But then not only that, you see newcomer Miles Caton, who was amazing in this movie. I was surprised that this was his first movie. And then he has a wonderful singing voice. His voice is like a beautiful, like rich hickory smoke. It's like he's got this deep voice, and for so young, I think he's like 19 or 20. He's like he was a great actor and fantastic singer, and he was great. And you got his character and everything going on with his family. His dad is a preacher, and that sort of sets up this conflict, because he loves blues music, and you see this, and there's this conversation in this is something that I was also aware of too. And growing up in the Christian church, a lot of the conversations or anything outside of the church is sinful. So all the music that all the kids listen to is, it's not the way. It's not of God. And so there's this argument to be made around, look, man, that stuff is worldly. You got to be in the church. If you're in the church, you got to listen to gospel music. You got to be of the word of God. And there's this, that was a familiar thread that I've known from my own experiences when I used to go to church more often. That was the conversation. So Sammy, who Miles plays, is sort of in that situation, but his heart is He's calling out to the blues. That's where he's, again, interesting character. Then you got the women. The women actually were some of my favorite elements of the movie. You have Mary, who's played by Haley Steinfeld, she's great in everything. She's fantastic here. You have Annie, played by Wunmi Musaku, and she's great. If you remember her from Loki, she's particularly good in this movie. You got Grace, you got and then Perline. There's some good stuff going on in this movie. I can't continue and not mention Delroy Lindo, the great Delroy Lindo. He as Delta Slim. A lot of people obviously are talking about him, so I'm not saying anything new when I say that he was a standout in this movie. Between him and Miles Caton, everyone else is like, you expect them to be good. And you also equally expect Delroy Lindo to be good. But there's something much more affecting about those two characters, I think, within the context of the movie, I think, which is why they stand out for me outside of their obvious talent. So between all those characters, there's a lot happening, and it's all good, rich stuff. And this is all before, action starts to jump off. It's like Ryan Coogler and his team, they were very deliberate in the crafting of this movie and in the seeds they planted before the movie shifts a few times from character drama to musical to horror and a musical within a horror, and then action. And none of this stuff nothing is lost, I think, in the transition from genre to genre, I think. And so the fact that you can maintain all of that, it's not new, right? We've had directors who've done some versions of this, but it's just not like this. I want to jump back to the technical prowess on display for this movie, highlighting the IMAX aspect. I missed this for a couple sequences, but I did catch it for one of the two last action sequences of the movie, which is where the movie has the bars on top and how that shifts. Sometimes certain sequences take place and the bars open up and it sort of puts you in to the action, as it were. And I think the movie uses that to great effect, and I think it's IMAX put to good use, not just for the musical centerpiece sequence that I mentioned earlier, but for the probably one of the premier action sequences in this movie, which is when things jump off, and it feels like you're in a theme park ride, and it's almost like you want to stop the ride just to get your bearings. That's what my first viewing was. That it was when stuff was about to jump off, the bars do this, and then it's like being a passenger in a car that you want to stop, that you can't. You put your foot on this imaginary brake that you can't stop, but because your friend is driving. It was that. It was the bars went up, and I said, okay, wait, give me a break. I need to slow down. It's just used to great effect. The way the film builds up to that action sequence, and this is like a last ditch effort, and our characters, our heroes, or our sinners rather, are in this situation, and you don't know if they're going to make it out. But the bars do this, and it's like, all right, here we go. Here we go. It is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. In fact, I want to see it again in IMAX just to really to revisit that feeling. It won't be the same because my first viewing was something, but if you have not seen it in IMAX, please do yourself a favor and do that. If you don't notice the bars, that's cool too. But because but if you do, prepare yourself. And then outside of that, it's just shot really well. The way the characters are framed, the way the establishing locations are framed, it feels like this. It's just, your eyes are just being fed with this. Just, it's almost too much good stuff. It's like you're going to become comatose by how good all the stuff is. So just, be aware if you haven't seen it. It's a beautiful looking movie too. The other thing I thought about during my viewing of the movie and sort of right as I came out, I mentioned Meister and I saw this movie during my first viewing, and we were talking about it outside the theater, and I mentioned how much it also felt like how it felt connected in some way to Black Panther spiritually. How Wakanda is a lot like the juke joint. Wakanda is this nation of safety for that country. Everybody is thriving. It's like this wish fulfillment of what a lot of Black communities could be if they aren't like that right now. And I think that's one of the things that was probably so appealing about that movie. I'm not quite sure how many people thought about that consciously, but this notion of a nation that had never been conquered, didn't have to deal with their people being enslaved or anything like that. It's this peaceful, safe nation on a countrywide scale. And in Sinners, the juke joint sort of operates like that. And the way that there's so many themes that each movie tackles majorly. There's this richness there that even though Black Panther is a Marvel property, Ryan Coogler still managed to make it personal and widely palatable. And I think Sinners is similar. It's more personal and still widely accepted. If I have any complaints about this movie, and this is a larger complaint about movies that do this, I think, which is mid-credit sequences and post-credit scenes. I'm all for them just as much as the next person, but there is, I think, a strong case to be made for, if this is part of the movie, just put it in the movie. Because, you see this, once the credits start rolling, you immediately get, especially if you're watching it in the theater, you immediately get up and you leave. Not a lot of people are going to be willing to exercise patience after sitting through a 2-hour plus movie to just sit and let it gestate. And, sometimes, unless some people might have to go somewhere. You might be pressed for time or whatever reason. There's really good stuff in the mid credits and post credits scenes of this movie that it feels like it's almost a disservice to the movie to not put it in the movie, put it in the actual movie before the credits roll. These things they're integral to the it's not life or death to the movie. The movie doesn't die if you miss the mid credits scene or you miss the end credits scene. But the movie is so much better when you see those things. So, it just adds more. It makes it feel more complete. Not that it didn't without it, but I think you otherwise they wouldn't have included it. You wouldn't have it in the credits at all if it wasn't something that you kind of wanted people to see a little bit. So my fix to that would just be, put this in the movie before the credits roll, and then we're good. It's done. That's my biggest issue, I think, with the movie. Everything else is fantastic. Like I can't think of another thing that made me go, this is whack. That's it. That's the biggest complaint I have. While I'm there, I'll counter that with something else that I really loved about the movie from a writing perspective. How the information was given to us, not in a way that felt like an exposition dump. Things felt like that we learned information gradually in a way that felt organic, as if we were standing just offside the conversation, just outside the shot, listening to these characters talk. Nothing felt forced with regard to information that was being delivered. And I just think from a writing standpoint, also the script is very tight. Everything makes sense. There's a lot here that we don't see which I love, by the way. I love that things that we get to understand pieces of backstory about the characters that inform the moves they make that we see. It's just, it's great writing that also seems to have left room for the actors to play and add stuff and to see what could make it more rich. Little things, little character things. Much as, for instance, the Delta Slim conversation in the car ride. A lot of people are talking about that. That is probably the most, next to the music sequence in the center of the film with Sammy, Delta Slim's monologue is the next best, most affecting, most powerful situation in the movie. Yeah, so much good. So much good coming out of this movie. Lastly, I'm going to show you this book here. This is the book, the book that came from the museum in Nashville. This movie reminded me of this book. I think just particularly the way music is handled in this movie it reminds me a lot of this. And again, speaking of music, I have to just, again, I was trying to end this review, but now we're on music. Ludwig Göransson, you already know that dude is a gangster. Anyway, a lot of his scores, if you know anything, this dude, like, it's just great. From The Mandalorian to Tenet to both Black Panther movies, everything he does is gold. And it's gold here. This is a fantastic score he puts together. And it's a fantastic score that goes well with sound design. Also, I should mention, there's elements of sound design that play in tandem with some of the music, and that's great. Music is handled very well in this movie, and it's really some of the stuff really made me emotional, especially as it pertains to certain sequences in this movie. It really felt like you're being cradled, which is what it feels like to me anyway, when I'm listening to a really good song that I have on repeat, for instance. I don't know how many of you do this. Sometimes I find good music and I have certain songs on repeat, and because it's like you want to try to get inside the song. You want to live in the notes as if you could take the music and wrap it around you like a blanket. And there are a lot of sections of the score in this movie that really do that. I've reached the end of the gush session for this movie, and I just have to say, I think it's probably Ryan Coogler's best movie, and it might very well be Michael B. Jordan's best performance that I've seen, certainly. And every actor really came with it. Every department really made something very special. Again, that's when I know a movie is really good for me, when I see it in theaters multiple times. There are several movies that I've done that with. If I see it more than 2 or 3 times, there's something's happening. So I'll leave it there. If you've gotten through this, I don't know what you want to call it. I don't even know if it's a review anymore. If you've gotten through all of it, thank you for suffering through it and for hanging out with me. And I hope that this has given you some indication of how you might consider moving when it comes to this movie. I'm not saying I'm not telling you what to do. I do recommend that you see Sinners if you haven't yet, because it's pretty good. Even if none of the other themes, nothing connects with you, from a filmic standpoint, it's pretty fantastic. That's going to do it for me. Thank you again for your time, and come on back. Take it easy, and I'll see you in the next one.